This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay, we're going to start the meeting. Rules of Government Relations Committee meeting will start in 10 seconds. It's not quite 5:30. Welcome, JP. Good to see you. Okay, I got 5:30. So I did submit minutes, and it was purely a discussion night. If you agree to them, Connie, we can approve them.
So moved.
Okay, I'll second. All in favor? Councilor Rist says aye. Councilor Denham?
Aye.
Councilor Kozinski?
Same.
Okay. Public speak. Paula Rapolis, did you want to say something for our meeting? This is a Rules of Government Relations Committee meeting. You need to unmute if you want to speak. Hit your space bar or the microphone button. Can you hear me? Nod your head if you can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Now we can. Did you want to say anything? We're talking about ranked choice voting tonight. If you want to say anything, otherwise you don't have to. You can just watch the meeting.
We happen to see Mr. Rist in the agenda, public speak time, and basically, it's just just as a letter of formality, because my sister and I, we have concerns regarding the the Sierra Vista Commons project.
Oh.
And it's not, I know that it isn't the intent of tonight's meeting. We just want to know exactly what are the steps where there is going to be. I know there have been meetings in the past. In regards to this, when is public speak? Is our comments to by the public, are they still open for discussion?
Your public speak is on now for the Rules of Government Relations Committee. The issue that you want to speak to is best spoken to the planning board meetings. If you've gone to those meetings, they have the full authority as to approving the permit for that project. I don't believe the city council will act on anything because there's no ordinance change, zoning change in front of us. Now, you're welcome to come to the council meeting on September 6th. There's a public speak time then, and you'll have, the president usually gives you 3 minutes to speak. But just for your own knowledge, city council don't believe we will have any vote on this, right? It's a planning board that does all that work. And you should check the meeting agenda on the website to find out when they next meet, okay? I hope that helps.
Yes.
Yeah, all set on that. Thank you.
Okay, so let's move on. Last time we met, and I'll just review it, we talked about the non-binding ballot question. We discussed how we proceed. There's the possibility that it can be put on the ballot and maybe it would suffice to please the legislature. And if the voters say yes, Tom, interrupt me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. If the voters say yes, then we would proceed with a charter amendment. And if that is approved by the legislature, perhaps this non-binding vote would please the legislature and we could move ahead. However, this counselor is not optimistic about that. So we're not sure if this would put the ranked choice voting into play in the 2025 election. However, as Tom pointed out at the last meeting, this would at least tell us where the community is. And if we're going to spend the time on a charter amendment, we don't have to do that if they say no. Is that sufficient recap? Tom, why don't you
Sure.
finish that?
I think that that's a very good recap. The one other point I would just make here is the last time we did the sort of charter amendment that requires when we did ranked choice voting in the four-year mayor the last time, one thing that I found was that the process is, in my opinion, somewhat inefficient. We have to go through all of this internal deliberation. Then we need to go to the legislature, who's hugely inaccessible and has timelines that don't always work because they have periods of time where they're not really doing anything and periods of time where they're hectically busy. Important business routinely just doesn't get addressed by them in a given time frame. Now, when we're doing these things, it's going to have to go on the ballot. So for instance, last time I was spending multiple hours a week on the phone with various state senators, state reps, whatever, trying to get the four-year mayor and the ranked choice voting passed in time for us to put it on the ballot. And they finally passed it and sent it to us about 2 or 3 days before
I remember that.
it was going to happen.
Last minute.
It just wasn't, it's a bad situation because if something big comes out in their process and they can't get to it in time, well, then you now have the options of either waiting an entire 2 years or spending 5 figures of money to hold a special election for a ballot question. Neither of those are very attractive. And so where I thought, this was an idea, and I appreciate it's a little bit of a Hail Mary. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but if we were to go to them and say, look, this is a thing, the city council deliberated on it, we voted on it, the mayor signed it. We also, before we did any of that, held a public policy question and asked the voters what they thought of it, and X% of them approved of it. And because there's nothing actually in there, like the way that whole thing is set up, that they sort of carved out the authority to amend people's charters. It's like 2 sentences. It's very it's a strange little amendment to the Home Rule Act, or a strange little section within the Home Rule Act. So as far as I and everyone else that I talked to about this can tell, there's absolutely nothing. Like, for instance, when we did it a second time, for all of the stuff that we sort of deemed was housekeeping, they didn't require us to go to the public.
Our current charter requires us to go to the voters if we change election. It's not just.
Well, that might be the case, but in addition, they have discretion to choose when they to choose which things. We might impose that upon ourselves at sometimes, but they could have they would have been within their rights at that meeting, with that second petition to say, we actually think these are too big, you need to put them before the voters. They absolutely have the ability to decide whether or not to do that. So then my question is, if we go and we say,
we did that already.
Hey, we because it's kind of a lot of work and I don't exactly want to do it.
I think
if it's not even gonna, this just makes more sense. It's actually very easy to put this to the voters and say,
and it really doesn't cost anything. The printing doesn't cost.
No, we're already printing the ballots. I mean, I guess a little extra ink.
If we put this on the ballot, let me. So JP, you caught up on all this now?
I'm good. I think I understand the process. The role of the legislature, the role of the city council, the role of the mayor, and the role of the public as we see it in thinking about this. I think the only concern I have is that we have enough lead time for the public to be able to really work on this and really understand what the issue is before there's a question on the ballot. This is a very I see it as it's not a simple issue. It's not like, oh gosh, this is real simple. We saw it in operation really during our own election process where we had a joint meeting with the school committee and there were lots of candidates and we had a professional help us with that. So that's one of the concerns I have. I think it's great that we go before the public. It's just, do we really think that we're going to have folks understanding the process in whatever time? I'm not sure how long it takes for us to get to the point of going on the ballot. All right, let's say we get this done by October 1st, and now we're at least 35 days technically ahead of the election in order to put it on the ballot. But then in 35 days or 45 days, we'll be going to the legislature and saying we've had a real true airing of this and understanding. I think we're going to want to say that people have had a chance to really chew on this and understand what ranked choice voting is, especially as we understand it with multiple position elections. We understand it, I think, if there's one position and 4 or 5 people going for the one position. Is it any more complicated as we say there are 11 people going for 6 positions? And does that change how the ranking goes? Is it the number 1 person or the number 2 person? How does that all balance out in terms of who gets selected because there are more ones or more twos? Do you go to, what if lots of people have twos but they don't have a single one?
All of that, JP, first of all, we have September 20th. If we get this voted in at the September 20th meeting, that's more than 35 days before the election. Mm-hmm. But that's our deadline because the council has to vote on it. Secondly, all of the details would be put forward once we get to an election where it is possible to do this. The point of this is to see if whether we do it now or later, we're going to have to educate the voters if they ask. So I don't know how to proceed that way, but we have, I've got up here what the city attorney put in, and it's just 5 sentences with some summary. I don't think that's that confusing. They may say, well, how does it work? That's going to require somebody to tell them how it works.
There can be
if you all think that's sufficient time for however many voters, 8,000, 9,000 people who may end up voting on this or less, if this is really an off-year election, so it's kind of odd that we're not in a state election cycle. Well, we're in a municipal election cycle, so that some people will show up. We will have some, yeah.
Well, we might. But we
anyway, you're right, Dan. It's 5 sentences.
at some point.
Go ahead, Tom. Go ahead, jump in.
Okay. So, yeah, JB, you brought up a ton of good points. I'm going to try and get to a couple of them. I might not get them all because I've been coding all day. My brain's tired. Yeah. So just to start, in terms of the timeline, if we vote on this tonight, we could vote on it at the next city council meeting.
I think
right?
we could.
And if
we could amend the agenda.
It doesn't require a public hearing, so we could vote on it in the next city council meeting. At that point, the press will presumably cover it. So we've got basically 2 months to publicize this and air any sort of discourse. And it's true that in those 2 months, it's possible that we do an insufficient job educating the public, and as a result, they don't understand it and they vote it down, which is what happened in 2020. But if so, that's on us, and that just is what it is.
Uh-oh, you froze. Can anybody hear me? I see myself move, I see everybody move, but I don't hear, I've lost sound. Is it possible to get the sound back? I can try logging back in if it's me, but Tom looks frozen on the screen. Yes, Omar. Okay, good. All right. I can see you guys. I just can't hear you. Now, let's see if this comes back.
Oh, you right?
I hear you. There's sound. Let there be sound. Sounds good.
I think, Tom, you go ahead and continue.
Yeah, I mean, so 2 months the public. Now, in terms of, how is it different? I mean, obviously it gets calculated a little bit differently when there's multiple winners versus when there's just one. But in terms of how the voters vote, it's the same exact thing. You put your favorite person, your second favorite person. You rank as many or as few as you want. Same as you can currently just vote for one or up to four or whatever. So it's really, it's similar. But what I actually think is a perk of it, among many other things, is the fact that at that point, for the first time in our city's history, every election will be voted on the same way. You won't have one set of instructions for the single winners and one set of instructions for the multi-winners. That's, because right now it's, okay, well, for this race, you're going to do it like this, but for this race, you have to do it differently. And of course, the races where you really often want to vote, really where you kind of worry sometimes about your votes are frequently the multi-winner races. The single winner, there to be multiple contestants in this race. So I think that there's that's where I guess I am. Did I miss? You have a lot of questions, so I probably missed.
I have something to say that's important because this really turned me around. I thought there had to be more than 50%. There had to be more than 50% of the candidates available. In other words, if there's 6 positions, I thought there had to be 13 or more candidates for ranked choice voting to be applied. That's not the case. Even if there's, in this case, school committee now, we have 10 candidates, I guess, or whoever we have, you can rank them now. And by ranking them, just as it was with the convention, you can really make good choices that way as a voter. Whereas I thought, for instance, in a single, maybe a precinct race, I thought there had to be 3 people. Even there, if there's 2 people, you can say Tom Peak first, Joe Schmo second, and it would still work, right?
Or you could say write-in first, Tom Peak second.
Right, whatever. But I'm saying is there is has to be more than a majority. So that's really important to me. And I think in this case, JP, in the school committee case, that would be very valuable.
I wish we had, this is kind of why I wanted to do this. It's like, since it's going to be there, people are going to look at this and go like, oh, this is, and you're going to get like we did. I mean, Connie, when you ran, I remember people going, hey, if you really support so-and-so, if you really support Connie, you should only vote for Connie, this one other person. If you actually vote for all 4 of these people, there's a chance that it leads to this weird map where actually so-and-so loses. That goes away when you use.
All right, let's get to the matter.
Anyway, let's. Yeah,
I just want to make one.
I can't hear Connie.
I'm happy to support this. I think it's good for voters to take time about who they're voting for. My only concern, and I'm hoping that this is something that I can talk more about, and I just want to name it, is I'm just concerned about how it might be manipulated, right? And I just think that is a real concern. If I say, okay, I want to vote, I bring along voters, and actually have 0 interest. There's enough support for 1 or 2, and they all decide to vote that particular thing. There's a way of manipulating in terms of
Well, that's possible. I think it's more of a case. candidates actually run thinking, sorry, run, now, so he.
I think,
I'm just naming that
Yeah.
concern.
sure.
Let me
and
say
it's a
this,
valid, well,
to that valid point. Non-binding question.
Mhm.
These points can be, let's say they say yes.
Mhm.
Points can be debated as you amend the charter.
Right.
Now, let me say that to the point of the ballot question and this question, are they well informed? I think if we don't inform them, in my opinion, it'll affect the cause negatively. People will say, I don't know what this is. I'm not voting yes. That's just my opinion. Because of, they want to be educated. Now there, that goes to, I think this language the city attorney has is good, but he says, I believe you should also include a summary. Now, in a simple way, that summary should say, like you said, this would make all voting the same, since we already have ranked choice voting for the mayor and precincts. It would also allow a person to choose, in the case of 10 candidates for 6 positions, those candidates in a ranked choice area. In other words, in the summary, we do a lot of good in a positive way. I'm on you, Tom. To try and write a summary that's not too complicated,
yes.
that the uneducated voter say, oh, I see. If there's 10 candidates in my ballot right here in front of me, I could have voted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, 8, 9, 10. That way, I think you get a better chance of passing it. So I think the only thing that has to be added to our situation for the meeting is a summary, because it would be this plus the summary on the ballot. And I want to know how you feel about that.
Sure. I like that idea. I don't have I've played around with some stuff. I don't have a perfect summary. I think that's where I'd want to, I mean, because I had, Jen Gilbert wrote one up that I sent, but it's quite technical. And the reason why it is quite technical is because last time we did this, we had the feeling that we needed to make it so, so now I'm saying, like, how do I rewrite this to make it more accessible? I think there's totally a way to do it. What I could do is, you go forward with this at the next meeting. I could submit it as an amendment or something. And
why don't we haven't? You don't have to put this on this packet. I think you have to have the summary and it's ready to go. And forgive me for saying this, Tom.
Yeah,
You're a great counselor, but you're a nerd with data.
sure.
And so is Dan Gilbert. We have to have a non-nerd write the summary. I'm not saying it's me. Ranked choice voting so well. The way to.
I know some nerds that I could reach out to about this.
You say this so seriously.
No, your point is taken. Like, I know who I am. I think there's some people I could reach out to.
But don't you understand the summary will? Okay, I think this will work. Because they're looking at they're voting 6 members out of 10 candidates this election. If all 10 get their papers in, as I understand it, there's 10 candidates who pulled papers for the school committee.
I think it's also possible, I mean, we have the video of that meeting. There's some ways of trimming that down and showing how it is actually operates.
Well, that's where you could use Easthampton media to help educate. But I really believe people don't pay attention until they get to the ballot.
Yeah, I think that this will have, one of the advantages it'll have is that ranked choice voting has passed Easthampton twice, right? It passed on the ballot, and when we did the statewide ballot, it failed statewide, but it won by virtually the same margin in Easthampton. So I do think that there is a broad.
I don't disagree. I'm only concerned because this
it's a little
particular election is not going to be well, there's not that many people.
Well, we'll see.
What do you
I mean,
think,
there's
Omar?
a big.
I mean, there's no mayor.
No, there's a big bunch of school committee. There'll be people there for that.
What do you think, Omar? Do you agree we need a good summary?
I can.
What do you think? I think we need to keep a summary as clean as possible. Oh, Barbara's here.
So the question is that from this committee?
I think we do, yeah.
Okay, you just want to.
We're going to present the
Because
ballot.
we had the question. This committee is going to approve based on what the city solicitor said.
I think the language is fine, approve. I mean, does the committee agree with the language up there?
The only thing that I would like to change just slightly would be, and there might be a way to make this so much more streamlined, but this was my first shot at it, would be, instead of saying, do you approve the city of Easthampton using ranked choice voting? What I would say is, should the city of Easthampton petition the Massachusetts state legislature to amend the city's charter to use ranked choice voting? Well, okay, but I guess I could say, do you approve of the city of Easthampton petitioning? But that just becomes a bigger run-on sentence.
I don't think we need to do that. I think we need to say, do you approve ranked choice voting in an election system? If they say yes, whether it has to go through some governmental procedure is unnecessary to the voter. Procedure is hard. I don't think you need that.
Well, okay, fair enough.
This is very simple.
Could I then suggest an alternative?
Okay.
In the summary, I might finish the summary with a sentence saying, if this is accepted, the city of Easthampton will consider petitioning the legislature for a special act to amend the charter to allow.
The key to me is making sure they understand why is this an advantage for the voter. And if you look case where you don't even have to say, look at this election. In the case where you have 10 candidates, assuming we have that many,
right?
But 10 candidates, you can number them 1 through 10, and the top 6 will be picked. And it's already software that doesn't cost the city any money. That's important. We already have the software.
Yes.
Okay. So first, JP, what do you think about all of this? Summary, okay? I want to do a simple summary along with the question.
Let me say this. I think it makes sense for us to put it to the voters on a non-binding question. That I'm in support of that. In terms of, I was wondering about the time length that for folks to really understand the intricacies, as Councilor Denham pointed out, and there are some intricacies that you use the term manipulation that give certain what are the leanings of this towards a certain way of something happening. Anyway, that's more complicated. I'm not going there. Let's just stick to the language as we have it. I would stay with the language as proposed by the attorney, and I agree with Dan that we should elaborate if we want to about what will happen. And I did like the way Councilor Peak phrased what will happen if this passes the non-binding referendum. So I think we're on the right track.
So Barbara, just to confirm, if Tom puts together a summary along with this language, we're going to use, you see my cursor moving here? We're going to use this language.
The language of the non-binding. Yes.
Right. And I have a summary which helps to explain how to help the voter in a simple way. If we get it to you for the last 20th, is that sufficient time, correct?
Yes, I need the exact voting, the exact language. Now I'm sorry I came in late. But are you going to say a yes vote means, a no vote means? Are you going to do that? Or are you just going to say yes or no?
Well, it's a non-binding thing, so I wasn't planning on it, but what I was planning to say is, if this vote is successful, the city will explore petitioning the city for a special act.
Well, I see the question here, but after that, in whatever summary you want to vote, will you mean, the last time we did it, it said yes, a yes question. I sent the language on that. It's like you vote yes, a yes means this, no means this. I think
I agree with Barbara wholeheartedly. I think we should mirror the Secretary of State's information pamphlet that comes out. And a yes vote means this, and a no vote means that is much more uniform than saying if they voted yes.
I think after you do the summary, Tom,
Uh-huh.
a yes vote means the city will pursue petitioning the legislature for a charter amendment. A no vote means no changes in election. I mean, it's simple. There won't be any change.
Well, you might want to say yes. A yes vote means I am in favor of this. A no vote means I am not. I wouldn't, I think I sent the language from the very last election, how we put it. Just so it's really clear what a yes vote means and what a no vote means. And I don't think it needs to be long and complicated. Just if you vote yes, it means this, and no, it means this. It's basically, are you in favor or are you not in favor? But
Okay. Tom, homework. Summary. Yes vote means, no vote means.
Yes, I mean, the voter supports this change, no vote.
And in the summary, if you could say in the summary, after that, in the summary, how does this help the voter? Make it simple, as well as stating that if this vote is a positive vote, the city will then proceed to petition the legislature, if you feel that's necessary.
I would say probably.
I wouldn't even put that. They don't need to know that. You're just asking if they want it or if they don't. And then if they do, then you know what your next step is. But the voters are not going to just ask them, are you in favor or are you not? You don't have, just make it simple. This is just non-binding.
Wait, Barbara, until I call on you. Barb, okay? Tom.
The reason why I thought it might be nice to include something like that is because, again, this is sort of testing to see whether this is even a method that a city could use to amend their charter. And I feel like using language explicitly saying, this is us asking you for permission to petition the legislature might be something that they think it would keep them from saying, well, this is just a non-binding question. This isn't them asking if we should do a special act. It's like, no, I want to specifically refer to the prospect of where the actual public policy question that we are referring to here is not implementing a voting method. It is petitioning the legislature, because every time that I see these things, like when you got your midterm election comes around, there's always one, and they say, oh, shall the state legislature pass a act supporting Medicare for all? It's something like that. But there's a specific act. There's a specific act of the government. Even though it's a non-binding thing, it's asking, should the government do a specific thing? The specific thing that we would be doing here is not amending our charter. We do not have that power. The specific thing that we would be doing is petitioning the legislature for a special act to amend our charter. So I just thought that at the end of the summary, I would say, if this is successful, the city will explore. I want to say explore because it is non-binding. We could come to this point and 5 councilors actually, I don't care if the voters said this, I don't want to do it.
Let me say that I have no problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
But
saying and what we can do to educate voters about process. I think that is paramount. I think the role that we play, not just in passing things or proposing things, much of what we should be doing is educating the voters about what our process is and what the process is at the state level.
All right,
how about if you said something like, would you be in favor of the city petitioning the legislature to to add multi-winner ranked choice voting?
Barbara, can you hear me, Barbara?
You're going on and off. Can't hear you now.
No?
Nope.
JP, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
All right, I don't know what's going on. Barbara, I'll get back to you. Here's the summary. We've decided that we're going to shoot for the 20th to get this done. We're going to have another meeting to finalize the actual ballot question and summary. Tom is going to prepare that. So all I want is a document that shows this is the ballot question. If you can't hear me, I'll inform you that
I can hear you.
I need you at that meeting. That meeting will occur 2 weeks from now. Let me ask you what's possible. I don't know if I'm getting anything for finance. So we have September 6th council. We can do the 14th. Thursday, the 14th. JP, how's that look?
Wednesday or Thursday?
I think you said Thursday, the 14th.
For rule, finalize this document? Or does that,
Works for
is
me.
that too late to get it in the packet? Because that's a Thursday.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, 12th, Tuesday, the 12th.
It's fine.
JP, the 12th. It's 2 weeks from now.
Or it should work.
Okay, we'll do the 12th, so if we get the document done.
Okay.
She's 5:30 on the 12th. Okay, Barbara?
Yep.
And what I'm hoping, well, before that time, you can send us it so we can all digest it and then debate it that night, okay? And then we get it done. We vote on the 20th, it gets on the agenda. Okay, so I think that concludes our discussion tonight. Does anybody have anything else? If not, take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, all in favor, Counselor Denham? Counselor Kuzinski?
Aye.
Says aye. Paul? I'm recording this so you can see it.
I can't hear you, Dave.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.